I could have been George. As I think back to the events that happened with Mr. Floyd, it's like a Band-Aid was ripped off a wound that had been hidden away for about 27 years. I don't know many African American men over the age of 25 that hadn't had some negative encounter with law enforcement. Today I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my first negative encounter. I've always had to work hard growing up, and I started working at the age of 16. I was a dishwasher at Quincy's in Saraland, and we were working pretty late on a Friday night, and I had someone come and pick me up. So, as a dishwasher, you work late, and then once you finish washing the dishes, you have to clean up the restaurant, clean the floor, and take out the trash and do these things. So I was pretty dirty and also pretty wet. A ride came and picked me up, and it was my 16-year-old nephew, Harry, and our 18-year-old friend, Herschel. And they picked me up, and we thought about we was going to go out after I got off of work to Midnight Madness to the fair. We grew up in Pritchard, and the route that we had to take home would have been going straight down Highway 43 South. But as a kid growing up, one of the things that I could always remember was my parents and my older siblings telling me to always be careful in Chickasaw and to not get caught in Chickasaw after dark. But us being naive kids, we took that ride home. So we traveled through Saraland and we entered into Chickasaw. And once we hit Chickasaw, lights just kind of came on out of nowhere. Immediately we started to get a little nervous because we've often heard of negative encounters between young men and the police. So once they pulled us over, if you're familiar with the Chickasaw area right now, they pulled us over in the parking lot where the Family Dollar store sits now. They asked me, I was sitting in the front seat and Harry was driving. They asked both of us to get out of the car. Once we got out of the car, for some strange reason, things just started to get very aggressive. I'm not sure what happened. They never even told us why they pulled us over. I tried to explain to the officers that this was just my ride from work, that they was just picking me up from work. And when things turned for the worst, one of the officers pulled his gun on us, which automatically led to the other one pulling his. It was just a very, very aggressive situation. And we were scared for our lives because all the time growing up, we were always told to never get caught after dark in Chickasaw. Because the Chickasaw community and the police department in that area has always had a bad reputation when it comes to dealing with African American men. This bothered us so bad, and I kept trying to explain to the officers, and things just started to escalate. And I turned around because at that point, I didn't know if we were gonna make it or not. And with water in my eyes, I told him, I have on a baseball cap that says Quincy's. I have on a Quincy's polo shirt. I have on an apron. Clearly, I just got off of work. And I don't know what it was, but the second officer that pulled his gun on us based off of the reflex of the first officer, he slowed the situation down. And they left and they let us go. Never told us why they stopped us in the first place. No, I'm sorry. Nothing. They just left 3 terrified teenagers on the side of the road as if nothing had ever happened. And to this day, this situation still bothers me. I called Harry and I asked him, did he remember that night? He didn't even want to talk about it on the phone. He drove to where I was. And then I called Herschel, and it was the same thing. And the thing that bothered me about this is we're all productive citizens in this society. Harry is a successful business owner on Smack Shack food truck. Herschel is a retired Sergeant First Class from the United States Army that served 4 tours of duty. These are successful black men that are really great citizens in our society, and we were almost taken away by racist police officers as teenagers. And I talked to Harry, and he told me that we need to have a conversation because my little nephew Reginald is about to leave to go to college. And we're so scared for Reginald right now because we don't know what's gonna happen with him, and we need to have the talk with him before he leaves to go to college, because we won't be there to protect him from these types of situations that appears to happen to each and every one of us. We don't know how to prepare him for when his day comes. Because the way the country is divided right now, who's to say that his day won't come? You know, we have a great divide in our community between us and the police department. The gap is continuing to get wider and wider. And the killing of Mr. Floyd, it just opened the gap even more. The gains that we thought we made, it's clear that we haven't made these gains. We need for people in authority to speak up. We need for people in the police departments to speak up and speak out against the 1 or 2 bad cops. Because even to this day, if blue lights come on behind me, I get nervous because I have 3 little girls and a wife that I have to make it home to every day. And I don't know the intentions of the officer. I don't know if this is one of the 99% of the good ones, or if it's the 1% that I need to be worried about. I could very well be George Floyd. We all could. This situation is something that we really have to get under control, and we have to get under control very fast. The country is more divided now than it's ever been before. And just like people within any organization, everybody knows the bad apples within their organizations. And we have to pluck these bad apples out of our organizations and not allow them to continue to build up the level of complaints that they're getting and go from one police department to another police department where they continue to do the same thing. I'm shaking. I'm still upset. This was just another Band-Aid ripped off in our country. This is just another black eye for our country. And for the law enforcement that's doing the right thing, I appreciate you all for protecting and serving. Because when law enforcement takes an oath to protect and serve, that oath is to protect and serve all. It's not to choose who you decide to protect and serve. It's not to decide, okay, I'm gonna treat this person differently than this other person. Every one of us are citizens of this country, and we all deserve the same level of respect. Every person, no matter the race, creed, or color, we all deserve that respect. I am George Floyd. I am George Floyd. Thank you.
Stop right there, Bracy. When you look at me this time, that was good, man. Appreciate that. I know that's heavy. One of the conversations we have to have in our communities is to talk. What is the talk? Just briefly describe it.
To you or to
Just in brief.
The talk is very difficult because the talk at the end of the day, the mission is to make it home. The talk is to respect authority. The talk is to when you get pulled over, put your hands on the steering wheel. Don't make any sudden moves. Those are the things that's the talk. But what happens is we're starting to see things now that we knew were happening, but the difference is they're being video. And even from when we have a talk with our young men, they're still getting killed. We still see young men getting killed when they place their hands on the steering wheel. We still see young men getting killed when they're listening and doing exactly what the police tell them to do. These things are just continuing to happen over and over again. The talk is to make sure that your eyes are always open. You're trying to do the right thing at all times. You try to listen. You try not to make sudden moves. But even doing that, our young boys are being killed. And what's happening even throughout all the different states, the states are giving police officers immunity. And by doing that, nobody has to suffer the consequences for their actions. And the local district attorneys in these cities are presenting the cases to the grand jury, and they're coming back with no bill. These police officers are not even going to trial, just like in the case of Michael Moore, just like in the case of Lawrence Hawkins that's been killed right here in Mobile County. If you don't have a district attorney that's gonna even try to prosecute, the family's attorney won't even have an opportunity to discuss their side of the case. So you only have a grand jury listening to one side. They don't even go to trial. And you also have these guidelines where cities can only be sued up to $100,000. So even in wrongful death, a lot of cities are only paying families $100,000 and spreading it out over 5 years. Is that all we're worth? So the talk is a serious situation that we need to continue to have with our boys. They need to be very focused. They need to pay attention, watch their surroundings, and try their best to avoid this situation that appears to be so unavoidable.